shouldn't be leading this group. That felt good to admit. If I kept that bottled up in my head any longer, my brain was gonna explode. I mean, I know why everyone's looking to me. I'm URE Armed Forces, fighting for a free and united Earth, yada yada yada, but I'm just a pilot. Throw me in any squadron you want, and I'll be your top stick, bet the house on it. Just don't expect me to command the damn thing. All I can really do is try to keep everyone's spirits up. Sure, we're in the ass end of nowhere, but a smile and a few laughs can go a long way. Even in the worst of situations. Can't make rations out of it, but hey, baby steps.
Diana, are we going in?
You know, this whole staving off the ever-looming specter of despair thing would be a lot easier without all the dinosaurs. Did I not mention those? I should have mentioned those. Anyway, turns out that raptor attacks aren't so great for morale. True story. At least the weather's holding up. We've had clear skies for 3 days now. And it was a good idea to start giving people call signs too. Getting a new call sign for my squadron always made me feel closer to them. Whatever it was. Hopefully it works with this bunch. The newbie suggested rubberneck for me, since I keep looking at the sky. But I can't help it. It's really gorgeous here. A perfect blue. Ugh, I feel so much lighter now. Sure, part of that might come from sleeping in an actual bed, but mostly I'm just relieved that my ragtag band of rascals is in better hands. This larger group we joined is way more organized. They've been setting up shelters, mining element, and establishing a perimeter for weeks. Not surprising, one of the leaders is URE Special Forces after all. Weirdly, some of the people here are from the Federation. But given our situation, even the Feddies are being team players. Hope that truce holds up when we get this tech gear up and running. The more the camp's grown, the more tense things have become with the Feddies, so today I decided to break the ice. Whatever's happening between the United Republics of Earth and the Terran Federation and the rest of the world doesn't matter. We're all in this together, right? Of course, with my dumb luck, I didn't make nice with just any old Feddy. I unknowingly buddied up to Santiago. Yeah, as in the Santiago that's so famous he's only got one name. As in the guy who hacked into URE Command one day and reverse engineered our latest tech armor the next. Yeah, that Santiago. Turns out he's really into pop music. Super disappointed he's missing the new season of URE Idol. Go figure. The top brass finally agreed on a plan today. According to our makeshift engineering core, we've got the resources to cobble together an off-brand, flight-ready suit of tech armor in a month or two. One person will then take that armor and leave in search of help. Me. I'm fully certified for tech armor, so I've got a good shot at succeeding, and I'm pretty sure that my new buddy was the one who got the other Feddies on board. I was the only pick they could agree on. It's a lot of pressure. But this is the kind I like. No big group decisions, just a set of wings and an impossible mission. That's what Diana Alturas is all about. Oh, baby, did I miss real speed. And the sky. Oh, missed you too, beautiful. That prototype jetpack might not compare to my fighter, but the rush I got was way better than I'd hoped. Guess I've been stuck here for longer than I thought. Santiago's been joking about how much I owe him, but he's more right than he knows. I promised to bring him some music for the ride back to civilization. Least I can do for that little nerd. The full set of armor should be done by next week. Then it's finally showtime.
Where'd I put it? There we go.
Five, four, three, two, one. Launch! Good luck, Diana.
Well, so much for that. Less than a day after I set out, my mission hit a wall. Or more specifically, an invisible energy barrier that extends around the entire area. Definitely in my bottom 10 landings of all time, by the way. Oh, my shoulder's still feeling it. Once I reported back, I took Santiago to inspect the barrier. He thinks it's also the culprit that's responsible for jamming our long-range signals. So basically, as long as this barrier exists, we have no way to reach the outside world. We're completely isolated. Unless, of course, we find a way to take it down. We finally found our target. Apparently, those 3 obelisks on the horizon are attached to some crazy teleportation tech, and each one is linked to a 4th signal high above us. Whatever's up there is what we need to take out. Santiago says he can get us there by bypassing the security on one of the obelisk's platforms. Trouble is, we don't know what'll be waiting for us, and not everyone here is combat ready. So we're gonna take the diplomatic approach and make our mysterious hosts a present. The leaders don't want to risk spoiling the surprise, so we're discreetly building it in pieces. The whole bomb won't even be assembled until the minute the operation starts. Our captors won't know what hit them. Months of planning, a squad of guys armed to the teeth, and the biggest homemade bomb you've ever seen.
Oh, it's too slow!
And we still weren't prepared. How could we be? I don't think anyone could have been ready for that insane, shape-shifting whatever it was. It attacked us as soon as we carted the package to the center of the platform. We were getting taken out so fast we just set the bomb on a short fuse and made a break for it.
It's set! Run!
Less than half of us managed to dive off the platform in time, and I could feel the heat of the explosion as I fell.
Hope they're okay.
Nah, no sense in worrying. Not like we can do anything.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's new.
I hadn't stabilized Santiago on the way down, he'd been paced too. Of course, with everything that's been happening since we blew up that platform, he might be all screwed anyway.
We need to get back. Come on.
Things have gone sideways in a hurry, and I mean seriously, Fubar. Destroying that platform didn't just weaken the barrier trapping us here, it took out the whole freaking sky. Or at least the giant hologram that was posing as it. So yeah, turns out this entire landmass and everything on it is orbiting the Earth like some kind of artificial space island. Wild, right? I'd appreciate the sheer insanity of that a lot more if this place didn't feel like it was falling apart. We're taking all that we can carry and making a break for that cave system we discovered a while back. If the atmosphere's thicker underground, then we've got a real shot at pulling through. Oh my god, looks like we made it just in time. I backtracked to take a peek at the surface, and it's just one big fire. That's not a metaphor. I mean, it's actually burning. I guess some combination of the radiation that's leaking through the barrier and reflected sunlight is turning it into our own private hellscape. That's not exactly the kind of thing you want in your backyard, so the plan is to keep delving into these caverns. The good news is they're way bigger than we ever thought. We should be able to set up a pretty extensive base of operations, and after that, better not think that far ahead. Chin up and eyes forward, soldier. Our base is looking pretty fancy these days. We even had enough spare element to whip up some genuine hyperchambers. I'm feeling more rested than ever, yet somehow just as restless. There's no sky to lose myself in anymore. That's the problem. It's left me too much time to think. Weirdly, I keep coming back to my necklace, the Star of David one my mother gave me. Sometimes I catch myself reaching for it, forgetting it's not there. Why is that? I've never been too religious. Better take one of those gliders for a spin to clear my head. They're the only way to fly now that our jetpack stopped working. Maybe I'll think of some dirtier jokes while I'm at it. Halstead one-upped me on the last patrol, and I can't let that stand.
it. I've got it.
I always knew Santiago would come up with a new plan. His taste in pop idols might be questionable, but if anyone can figure this place out, it's him. After studying the obelisks in depth, he's convinced that he can design an amped-up version of their teleportation tech that can connect to more distant platforms. Specifically, it would be able to lock into a signal we discovered a few weeks ago, one that's on a slightly different frequency than all the other obelisks we've detected. More importantly, it's far, far away from any of them. The scale of this would be massive. We're talking years of work, but everyone agrees it's our best move. The Gateway project is officially underway.
Let's begin, shall we? We need that power. It's just out of reach. Let's get to work.
I knew the Gateway project would be gigantic, but it's still amazing to see how it's grown. We're not even halfway done, and it's already a sight to behold. The size is a product of how far we need to travel. The greater the distance, the bigger the teleportation matrix needs to be. Of course, that means we'll also need a lot more power, but we've got a solution for that too. The obelisks. Those bad boys are tapped into this place's main power supply, so in theory, we can hijack that power for ourselves. The caveat is that we need a massive surge of it all at once, and we're not certain how to pull that off. We'll crack that code eventually, though. I'm sure of it.
Where have I been taken? When I tried to pull my sword from that machine, there was a bright flash, and suddenly, I was in this desolate place. Whatever that device was, I must have broken it. Nerva's corpse traveled with me, blood still seeping from the wound I left in his chest. Despite what he's done, part of me thinks I should bury him. He was a tyrant, but he still died a warrior's death. For now, I will bandage the wound on my face and rest. It is night here, and it will be safer to explore in the light of day. I was fortunate today. The sun was rising as I finished bandaging my wounds, and had I not glanced at it, I would never have seen Nerva's body. It was 300 paces away, right where I left it, and it was smoldering. The sunlight was burning it. I remembered the cave I had spotted earlier and ran for it as fast as I could. My legs ached, and smoke was rising from my armor by the time I arrived. Yet, I was still alive. So now the sun was trying to kill me. Perhaps I was delirious, but I laughed at the notion. Monsters and armies have failed, so let the sun have its chance. I will defeat it too. Yesterday, I realized I could rest no longer. I had no more spare cloth for bandages and had eaten nearly all the moss nearby. Rather than risk the heat of the sun on the surface, I ventured deeper in the caverns. It was a treacherous descent, but I'm glad I went. The cave is larger than I could have imagined. In fact, it is hardly a cave at all. A great forest flourishes down here. It is as if this whole land is backwards. However, there is one thing that is familiar to me. The air is thick with the sound and smell of wild beasts. I must remain on my guard. The light down here does not burn like the light on the surface. Even the light that comes from the ceiling. I do not understand why, but I am glad for it. I was attacked by a pack of small monsters with spines on their back. In another life, they would have terrified me. But now, I fear no beast. I slew many of them, but more kept appearing. Even after killing the largest of them, they did not hesitate. Only when I neared a strange glowing pillar did they retreat. They seemed to fear the unusual light it emits. I should use that weakness against them. I finally removed the bandages from my face. While I avoided infection, the wound will surely scar. I do not mind, and neither does my new companion. In fact, I had just removed my bandages when I first saw him. From the branch of a great tree, he stared down at me with curious eyes. I stared back just as curiously. It looked almost like a young deer, but its fur was colorful, and it glowed like a fallen star. He reminded me of the paintings I'd seen of Qiling, but he seemed too small. Whatever he is, he approached me so innocently, I could not leave him behind. So now, he is Xiao, my little light in the dark. Navigating the forest has been easier with Xiao at my side. His light has both guided and protected me. The small spined monsters that I fought before returned in numbers, but they cowered and fled before Xiao's light, as they did from the glowing pillar. So long as Xiao is with me, I need not fear them. Yet, Xiao's power is not an endless well. If he does not periodically extinguish his light to rest, it will fade with time on its own. I must be careful when wandering in the darkest parts of this forest, lest Xiao's light will go out, and we are both put at risk. Even with Xiao's help, I can only do so much on foot. I need a reliable steed that can carry me swiftly through the forest and help me gather resources. Fortunately, I may have found such a beast. The other night, I heard many howls in the distance. When I investigated, I found a pack of strange beasts that look like hairless wolves. They are ugly, vicious creatures, but they are the perfect size for riding. For now, I shall stalk the pack. When one of the wolves is separated from the others, then I will knock it out with my arrows and claim it for my own. I have named my wolf Shi, for he is so black that he swallows all the light around him. No beast can replace Wu Zui, but Shi is swift and fierce. Upon his back, I can travel across the forest with ease. Yet, I know that Shi alone is not enough. In these lands, the strong will dominate the weak, and they will try to destroy those who do not submit. I am reminded of this every time my scar aches. To survive, I must grow stronger. It is time to rebuild my army. Yesterday, I stalked a giant-shelled beast with large claws that it could use like hands. Though slow, it seemed strong. I decided it would be a good addition to my army. But before I could attempt to bring it down, something swooped down from the sky to attack it. It was a great lizard, but not one like the ones I'd seen before. No, this beast was a true dragon, long of body with a feathery mane. It used the feathers on its arms to ride the wind, and tore its prey shells asunder with iron claws. When it finished its meal, it scaled the cavern walls and became one with the shadows, vanishing entirely from my sight. I have found my new prey. Soon, I shall command the might of a dragon. The dragon was even more formidable than I expected. At first, Shi was able to dance around the beast while I riddled it with arrows, but I underestimated how far its feathered arms could take it. It suddenly left Shi's leg wounded, and I was flung from the saddle. The crippled wolf did not last long after that, and I only survived myself by taking to the trees. time the dragon succumbed to my knockout poison. Its hide was full of arrows. I buried Shi where he fell. Though he did not serve me long, he did so loyally. Thanks to him, I possess the strength of a dragon. I am the Beast Queen once more. Traveling through the cave is easy thanks to my dragon, who I have named Aoyue. I've discovered that the cave is larger than I imagined. Beyond the forest, there are tunnels that lead further down into the earth, to a land of glistening water, and plants that glow like Xiao does. How far down does it go? If I keep going, will I find the end of the world? I do not know, but I will press on. I cannot return home, or even to the island I came from. My enemy lies dead far behind me, and I've found no friends or allies. I have no aim beyond simply surviving. So for now, all I can do is move forward. The beasts of this land grow stranger the deeper I go. Yesterday, I was attacked by a swarm of flying demons with writhing tentacles in place of heads. I think they were after Xiao. Where some monsters feared his light, these ones hungered for it. However, they were no match for Aoyue's fangs and my blade together. Still, I will keep Xiao close and have him extinguish his light for now. I could not bear it if he came to harm. Of everyone I have met in these lands, only Xiao had stayed by my side of his own will. Even Wu Zui had to be laid low first. I suppose there was that woman from the island too, but she is gone. Besides, I struck her. I doubt we were friends. I'm not alone in these caves after all. The footprints I found today belong to no beast, that much is certain. Yet, if humans left those footprints, they move like no one I have ever seen. They are deep, as though their feet hit the ground with great force, and they often have huge gaps between them. No man can leap that far. Yet, there are no beast tracks that accompany them. Perhaps if I move carefully, I can track and observe them. Whether they are friend or foe, I should learn more about them before I act.
Why do I always get picked to check on the obelisk? I really wish they'd send someone else for a change. Every time I have to scale these stupid walls with my climbing picks, I wish my armor's jetpack still worked, even though it hasn't for years. We never did figure out why they lost so much functionality after the catastrophe. Something new in the atmosphere, maybe? It's still worth wearing when we brave the surface, but I just feel so slow in it. Oh, and speaking of armor, I found something weird on my last trip. A burnout chest plate and some even crispier human remains. I don't know how, but I think we've got some new arrivals.
Where did I make my mistake? I moved in silence and never once left the shadows. But somehow, they saw me. I mounted Aoyue in an instant, but somehow, they still caught up to me. Had we fought, the battle may have been difficult. There were only 4 of them, and I had Aoyue, but their weapons and armor glowed like moonlight, and their movements were swift. I was about to strike first, when one of them raised their hands and took off her helmet. revealing a human face and hair the color of sunset. She convinced her friends to lower their weapons, but even as I write, I keep one hand on mine. We may share a camp tonight, but I dare not sleep. The armored ones had many questions when they awoke. They were surprised that I had raised Aoyue myself, and even more surprised that I came from a different land of monsters. That seemed important to them. I asked questions too. They say it is their armor that lets them see at night and move with such speed. I did not believe it until the orange-haired woman let me wear her helmet. With it, I could see through darkness as though it were bathed in green light, or see the red shadows of distant creatures. It was like magic. They asked if I wanted to stay in their village for a time. I doubt I will stay long, but I want to see more of this magic.
This woman, Mei Yin, she's not like anyone I've ever met. And not just because she's from hundreds of years in the past. It's those eyes. They're just so intense. It's like staring into a storm. She caused a real stir when we first brought her back to base with her pet monster, but everyone's pretty used to her by now. Honestly, I think she trusts us way less than we trust her. She only seems to speak when she's doing chores, and she's always got one hand on that sword of hers. I guess that's what it takes to survive all alone like that. But hopefully she'll learn that it's okay to let her guard down. Maybe then I can really meet the person behind those eyes.
This village is as strange as the armor its residents wear. They use tools containing light and sleep in glowing metal cases. They offered one to me, but I refused. I've slept outside with Aoyue and Xiao instead. I've no desire to sleep in something that looks like a coffin. They claim that their tools are not magic, but machines. I do not understand how that is possible. On the island, there were many weapons and tools that were new to me, but they were made of real things. How does one touch light, much less shape it? It is wondrous and beautiful, but I wish I understood it. I will have to try harder. It is no use. These machines are beyond my comprehension. I cannot even make the simplest of their tools to work properly. Compared to this, training with a spear or sword seems simple. I have tried to earn my keep by helping with chores and other tasks, but I usually get in the way or slow things down. Compared to the others, I'm like a child, and they treat me as such. This was a mistake. I belong in the forest of the beasts, not among these people in their glowing metal halls. I will ask them for supplies and depart within the week. I asked the woman with orange hair if I could take some supplies when I left, but she refused to do it for free. She said if I wanted the supplies, I had to try to use their armor first. It seemed like a trick, but I wanted to try the armor anyway, so I accepted. If I have been tricked, then I've never been so glad to be fooled. When I'm in that armor, my blood dances in my veins, and I can feel the world around me. It is as if I was asleep for my whole life, and I only awoke when I put the armor on. I cannot leave after feeling that. Not until I at least master the armor. Perhaps then, but not now.
I don't think I really understood hard work until I met Mei. Whether she's learning how to operate holographic controls or working on her aim, she basically tries as hard as she can all the time. And she hates asking for help. Instead, she'll just scrunch her eyebrows and glare at whatever she's working on until she can think of a solution. It's kind of adorable, to be honest. The only time I think she takes it easy is when we're sparring. That really opened her up, by the way. She even gave me a call sign, Juicy. Although she won't tell me what it means. I'd bet the answer on a match, but she'd kick my butt in a heartbeat if she got serious. Those muscles are cheat codes.
Discretion is the key to the armor. When I started, I would leap further than I intended, turn too sharply, or grip objects too tightly. Now, I'm in complete control. I could scale a mountain while carrying an egg and never break it, but also smash stone or fight a beast barehanded. Once I got used to the armor, my experience as a warrior helped me learn quickly. I can already outpace Juzi in a race and beat her in the sparring ring. I try to go easy on her now. She helped me a lot, so I do not wish to shame her. I should call her by her proper name too. But Diana sounds too serious for a woman that laughs so much. Juzi fits her better. She doesn't mind it, but I don't think she knows I've named her after an orange. Three days ago, I was asked to help the villagers obtain a clutch of dragon eggs. Only then did it occur to me that they did not have many creatures at their command. They relied far more on their tools. Perhaps this is why they were so impressed with Ao Yue. The hunt went well. I had to do much of the work and explain many things, but the others were grateful. It also let me test the limits of my armor. By now, using it is no different to me than wielding a sword, and I welcome the challenge. After the hunt, no one treats me like a child anymore, even when their tools confuse me. I suppose we all have different things that we excel at. I have turned into something of a stable master. The others are still unused to the presence of so many beasts and have to be taught how to care for them. It is a lot of work, but I do not mind. It has been comforting to be around so many beasts again. I've also taught them some lessons in close quarters combat. While their weapons are powerful, most of these people are not warriors. They have not tasted war. Juzi claims she was a soldier, but that she fought by flying metal ships through the clouds. She says she will show me how if we ever escape these caves. I doubt it, but it is nice to imagine. Juzi has finally convinced me to start sleeping in the metal pods the others use. I must admit, I slept more soundly, though perhaps that was because I knew she could no longer pester me about it. I do many things like the other villagers now. I eat like them, I dress like them, and I work with them. I still struggle with their tools, and I know that I can never truly be one of them. But that was true during the Yellow Turban Rebellion too. Those who I fought beside were my comrades, but I could never be a true soldier like they were. If that is my place in this village, then I do not mind staying for a while longer. It is not so bad.
Well, it looks like I'm off on another impossible mission. It's been way too long if you ask me. So those abandoned structures that Scout Team spotted a while back? Well, we're still not sure who left them there, but Santiago says that he's detecting the emissions from what could be hypercharged crystallized element shards in their vicinity. We need those for the Gateway Project's focusing lens, and we haven't been able to make them ourselves. The trouble is, we can't even survive down there without hazard suits, and half of that Scout team got torn to pieces by the nastiest, ugliest creatures we've ever seen. This could get bumpy.
I must move quickly. The tribe sent a party into the depths of the caverns, where rivers of violet fire flow freely and nothing grows. They sought something important, something that could help the whole village, but they have not returned. There is no response when we call for them through our messenger boxes. The other villagers fear them lost to the terrible demons that lurk there. I refuse to believe that. Juzi is with them. I've equipped Aoyue with armor and weapons like my own, and donned armor that will protect me from the violet fire. Whatever beasts or demons lie in our path, we will destroy them utterly and bring Juzi's team back. This is a place of death. The ground is scarred and barren, and there is no light or movement save that of the violet fire. Even Aoyue does not seem to like it. The living should not tread here. Why would Juzi come here? What was so important that she would risk this place? And why would she not tell me? Whatever the reason, it has already cost some of her teammates their lives. I found their bodies earlier today, mangled and partially devoured beside the remains of their beasts. Thankfully, Juzi was not among them. Great towers of crystal loom ahead, where the violet fire has frozen solid. Perhaps she has found shelter there.
Mission log. First Lieutenant Diana Alvarez, URE 82nd Orbital Strike Fighter Squadron. I'm leaving this for the record in the event of mission failure. We lost most of the team soon after arriving in the area of operations. Rojo and Flynn got picked off as we neared the target. Halstead and I are the last remaining assets. I was able to confirm that the target is in the ruins and have encoded the coordinates within this message. I'm gonna leave this behind and then we'll make one last run at it. And if someone could read this to me. Sorry, I'll never make good on that jet ride. You'd have loved it. I promise.
Diana, we can turn back now. It's not too late. This better be worth it.
I shall have to find whoever forged this gun and thank them with all my heart. Its strength saved the day. With my weapons in hindsight, I spotted 2 survivors running from a huge monster, but a crystal formation stood in my way. Rather than go around it, I sent Aoyue ahead and fired through it. My aim was true and the demon real. By the time it recovered, Aoyue was upon it, and we finished it together. I knew one of the survivors was Juzi when she ran up to hug me. I'm unused to such gestures, but I think she understood how grateful I was for her safety. Her teammate is wounded but alive. With rest, he will survive. Even now, I cannot convince Juzi to leave. I even tried using her real name, Diana, to show her I was serious, but she will not hear it. She says the plants she was looking for are too important. But what could be worth what happened to her teammate? It was disgusting. He started spasming in the middle of the night, and then the smaller version of the monster that was attacking them burst from his chest and tore out his heart. Blood and bones sprayed everywhere. and I was too stunned to act until it leaped at me. Fortunately, I was able to hold it off until Jutsu could shoot it. Whatever we are seeking, I fear we will face even worse dangers to obtain it. Jutsu said that the item she sought was in some ruins not far from where we camped. However, when she called them ruins, I had not expected to see buildings like the ones in our own village. It was puzzling to see buildings that looked at once ancient and new. I had little time to dwell on the ruins, for we were quickly set upon by more of the great demons. They rushed us, slobbering and gnashing, as Jutsu scrambled to find what she was looking for. I was able to hold them off with Aoyue's cannons, but by the time Jutsu found her prize, we were being overrun. To my shame, I had to leave Aoyue behind to hold the demons off while we escaped. It pained me to hear his roar as we fled, but his sacrifice saved our lives. Forgive me, my loyal friend. Without Aoyue, we had to move more cautiously. Another battle with the demons could prove fatal, but we managed to avoid their sight. All that was left was the climb. With no mount, we had to use climbing picks to slowly make our way upwards. It was a long and treacherous ascent, and we both nearly fell several times. Fortunately, we were there to catch and support each other, and through our combined strength, we safely reached the caverns above. After the climb, we lay there for a long time. I cannot remember if we laughed or cried. Perhaps both. Jutsu said that the items you found could help the entire village, but I do not care. I'm just so glad we are both still alive. We received a hero's welcome when we limped back to the village. The others say that Jutsu's treasure will help complete a magic door that can take us out of this place. They speak of escape and of returning home. That should excite me more. I used to long for those things. Yet, what comforts me most is that when they speak of their future, they included me in it.
You've got it.
I'm finally one of them. Not as a mercenary or out of desperation, but because I'm wanted. I owe it to Jutsu, I think. No, to Diana. She trusted me before anyone else.
Okay.
I will not forget that. I've been thinking of home lately. It is so far away now. I think that perhaps it is out of reach. Even if the others can complete their magic door, I do not think I will ever see it again. I can accept that now. I can move past it. I have a new home now, I think. And while I'm still not used to its oddities, I feel as though it is mine. Each day, I grow more adept with the tools here and more used to my routine. It has become normal to me. And now that this place is my home, I swear that no harm will come to it. I shall protect it with my life.
So, I finally finished the necklace. I could have had someone else make it, but that wouldn't have felt right. Not after all May went through to help me. At first, I was worried she didn't like it, but it turns out that she just felt guilty for receiving a gift without giving one. Typical, right? So in exchange, I finally learned what juicy meant. Tangerine. This whole time she's been calling me Tangerine. Definitely not the worst ginger-centric call sign I've had though, and totally worth it for that look on her face. She was so embarrassed. In that moment, I almost leaned in but I don't think she understands how I feel. Not completely. Not yet. And that's okay. For once, I'm not in a rush. Once we step through that gateway, we'll have all the time in the world.
I fear that even with the unwitting aid of Ms. Walker, I still cannot completely control the machines in the Starlit Sanctuary. I believe they sent us to the correct Ark, but I was unable to control precisely where we arrived on it. Alas, that means the location I saw in the Sanctuary is beyond my reach for the time being, along with the molten Edmundium I saw there. Ah, confound it all. Naturally, I cannot confirm that molten substance was indeed Edmundium until I have inspected it with my own eyes, but it simply must be. It looked exactly like my samples did when I attempted to melt them down. Imagine an entire cavern of the most potent element known to man. The wonders I can create. While the molten Edmundium remains elusive, this underground forest has proven quite illuminating, both figuratively and literally. Many of this cavern's species are bioluminescent, so out of curiosity, I dissected several of the glowing insects that are common here. After further study, I have concluded that the luminescent fluid found in their posteriors carries something akin to a bioelectric charge. However, I cannot determine how it is generated, and with no place to store it, said charge fades quickly. Curious indeed. What could be the cause of this? With no sunlight to provide the forest with energy, perhaps this charge comes from the soil? Yes, of course! The Edmundium is the cause! If there were truly molten pools of Edmundium somewhere in these caverns, then Edmundium minerals would have spread throughout the soil over time, allowing its wondrous properties to affect nearby flora and fauna. Even if it is not the direct source of the charge found in this forest's bioluminescent wildlife, it may have incited incremental changes in those species over several generations, which then led to their development of an internal charge. Oh, how invigorating! I could be standing in the middle of an entire ecosystem that has been absorbing the effects of Edmundium for generations. And all of its secrets are mine for the taking. Ah, magnificent.
Bloody hell. This place is weird. Don't get me wrong. It's fascinating too. Such an abundance of underground flora is completely unheard of. And because so many of the plants here are bioluminescent, the whole forest has an eerie beauty to it. That's just it though. Eerie is the operative word. I've been holding my rifle so tightly since we got here that I swear I've left dents in the grip. We should have gone back to the island. People know us there. They might have offered help and supplies. Rockwell didn't want to hear that though, and I wasn't about to let him come here alone. You can't surprise me anymore, life, I said. After wyverns, golems, and giant sandworms, I'm ready for anything. What about flying squid bat murder monsters? Life replied. Well, that is mildly surprising, I conceded, by which I mean I shot and cursed at those things all afternoon. At least when I wasn't running from them. Thankfully, after thinning their numbers a little, they decided that Rockwell and I weren't worth the trouble. Let's hope they don't change their minds. I'm not sure if I have enough ammunition to fend them off again. And yes, I know that FSBMM isn't the most scientific of monikers, but I'm bloody upset with them right now, so that's what I'm calling them. Along with some other names I'd rather not write down. While I can't say I'm enamored with this station's wildlife, I'm certainly grateful for its abundance of natural resources, particularly water. The permeability of the rocks here is astounding. The cavern walls are wet with condensation, and the floor is littered with pools of water. After all that time in the desert, This is one change I can welcome with open arms. Thank God for hydration. I don't mean that just for my sake either. Rockwell seems distracted. The other day, I had to keep him from walking headlong into a carnivorous plant. He wouldn't fare well in a harsher environment. Then again, at his age, I'm sure I'd lose a step too. There's no mistaking it. That was a giant armored mole rat. Thankfully, it wasn't aggressive, so I was able to get a good look at it. Its appearance made me realize something that I'd taken for granted. Every creature I've encountered has some basis on either a known species or human legend. Golems and wyverns never existed on Earth, but humans did write stories about them. Even the FSBMMs, still cross with them, appear to be a pastiche of known fauna. What does this mean? Are the curators of these stations human? Do they merely possess the extensive knowledge of humans? Or am I grasping at straws? I can't say, but it's worth pondering.
I must admit, I'm glad that I coerced Miss Walker into accompanying me. Her scientific mind may be far below my own, but she can fire a rifle proficiently enough. I suppose that is no surprise. She is a colonial after all, and she never has been terribly ladylike. I hadn't noticed what a foul mouth she has either. Dreadful! However, despite her past deceptions and uncouth vulgarity, I must tolerate her presence for now. The predators here are not to be trifled with. Of course, in my youth, I could have grappled them into submission. Why, I would simply pin their wings behind their backs and drive them to the ground. Yes, I'd give them a truly thorough thrashing. Ah, to be young again.
The FSBMMs returned, and I was right. I didn't have the firepower to fight them. Luckily, someone else did. It was incredible. I've never seen a human move that fast. 1 second, I'm a dead woman. And the next, there's someone in glowing silver armor tearing through those creatures like they were dodos. One got punched so hard, it skipped off the cavern floor. As if a superhuman savior wasn't shocking enough, when they lifted their visor, I found a familiar face. It was Mei Yin. It took me a good minute to form a sentence after that. I must have looked like a complete dipstick, because I swear she almost laughed. At least I'm a living dipstick. And with her around, I might stay that way. What's the saying? Absence makes the heart grow fonder? On the island, I wasn't sure where I stood with Mei Yin, but now we've been catching up like best mates. She apologized for socking me in the face. I learned how she arrived here, and that she got her new scar while battling Nerva to the death. You know, best mate things. She also introduced us to some of her tribe mates at her camp, and here's where it gets loony. They're from the future. Well, my future, anyway. It all fits, doesn't it? I've never met anyone from my future before, but Mei Yin and Rockwell are from my past, and the technology here is beyond anything from my present. Clearly, the current year is far beyond 2008. But by how much?
Ms. Walker I can tolerate for now, but I cannot abide by this barbarian. I cannot fathom how she even lives, much less how she ended up here. A primitive mind like hers could never have operated the contraptions in the Starlit Sanctuary. Yet here she stands, and worst of all, she wears a suit of Edmundium armor! The very thing I seek has already been claimed by some savage, sword-wielding tarts. It's outrageous. Such a beautiful product of science should not be sullied by her blood-stained hands. No, Rockwell, you must be calm. If she senses hostility, she will surely kill you on the spot. Yes, for now, I must bide my time and learn what I can. Whoever constructed this armor, I must find them.
The journey to the village was a bit tricky. Since Rockwell and I lack the high-tech armor the others wear, they had to help us along with rope ladders and zip lines. We made it eventually though, and it's quite the sight. The technology this tribe uses is incredible, although Rockwell was far more intrigued by it than I was. Mayon's friend, Diana, gave us the grand tour and he pelted her with questions the whole time. Fortunately, Diana just smiled and answered his questions patiently. Apparently, she was a pilot in her own time, which is the same era her fellow villagers are from. That there are so many people from one time period on one station seems unusual. I wonder what it means.
Astounding! That remarkable armor was but the tip of the iceberg. The barbarian woman has escorted us to the home of her new masters, and I can take nary a step without finding some wondrous new piece of technology, much of it relying on the power of Edmundium. The casual manner in which they use and refer to these wonders leads me to believe that while they are deeply familiar with the marvelous metal, they may not grasp the depths of its potential. Yes, Rockwell, this was well worth tolerating Miss Walker and her savage companion. I shall learn what these supposed future men know, and take it many steps further. The village has a vast supply of Edmundium, far more than my own paltry samples. In this quantity, I can almost hear it singing to me as I study it. It pulses with energy at such an entrancing rhythm that it's hard to tear my eyes away from it. The villagers here refer to it as element. Nonsense! Everything is an element. Did they simply forget to name it? I've also been learning what they know of the charge that is common in this place, which I made note of earlier. Their own studies confirm my suspicions that it is the result of the Edmundium that permeates the caverns. That makes it worth researching. Obtaining detailed information from these villagers is like drawing blood from a stone. The red-haired woman Diana has been pleasant enough in answering my queries, but she is no scientist. Her naivety makes that quite evident. I simply must convince these future men to place me onto one of their research teams. That's where I'll really gain some ground. Unfortunately, they seem rather skeptical of my scientific prowess. Bah! Ridiculous! I don't care what year they hail from. I am Sir Edmund Rockwell. A mind like my own only comes once a millennium. It should be their honor to have me amongst their ranks. The nerve of these people! I've never seen such arrogance and disrespect directed towards a worthy colleague. I finally convinced Diana to let me partake in the village's research and experiments, and I've been treated like an ignoramus. These so-called scientists dare to talk down to me. They dare to underestimate me. Fools, the lot of them. Well, I dare say I don't need them. Now that I have access to their facilities and supplies, I can research charge and Edmundium just fine without their aid. Soon enough, my knowledge shall surpass their own. Then we shall see who is primitive.
I have to convince them to stop. There's no way the station will allow this. This place would never allow anyone to master it. If it weren't for Raya's warning, I'd be ecstatic about what they were creating. A gateway that can help us escape the station and reach the planet below? It's brilliant, but the obelisk will kill everyone here before we can complete it, just like they destroyed the village Raya told me about. I'm sure of it. Bloody hell, I'm going to look like an absolute madwoman. I've barely settled in here, and I'm already coming to them with doomsday prophecies. I'll need to convince Mei Yin and Diana first. They're my best bet. Well, I think that was the best I could hope for. The tribe's leadership balked at the idea of dismantling the Gateway project entirely, but they've at least agreed to put it on hold until we've gathered some data from the obelisk. Diana was a big help. She seems to hold a bit of sway where this project is concerned. However, on this station, getting to an obelisk is something of a risky proposition. To reach them, we'll need to make a trip to the surface, which Mei Yin says is dangerous. That means before I go, I'll need a crash course on that armor.
Confound it all! Why am I progressing so slowly? These scientists are no more intelligent than I, yet they make continual progress while my own research continues to flounder. It's just a matter of experience, that's all it is. They're more familiar with their tools and they have more information at their disposal. Were I in their shoes, I would have finished that ridiculous project of theirs months ago. I must work harder to account for my handicap. I shall eat and sleep in the lab and allow for no distractions. Not until my so-called peers have learned to respect the name of Sir Edmund Rockwell. At last, success! I've finally been able to convert this charge into proper electricity. Subsequently, I used it to create not only a charge battery, but a lantern as well. It was a simple matter, really. It's baffling that these supposed scientists haven't managed it already. Based on their surprise when I showed them my new invention, my earlier supposition was correct. They've barely scratched the surface of charge and Edmundium's full potential. Soon enough, I'll have surpassed their understanding of both. Yet if they expect me to share the full fruits of my research with them, they are sadly mistaken. Those who doubt the genius of Sir Edmund Rockwell shall never reap its rewards. I have at last persuaded Diana to show me this grand project those bumbling scientists are working so hard on. I'm hardly impressed. If I had to guess, I would say that this gateway project is merely aping the transporter platforms present at the base of every obelisk, and crudely at that. Everyone is quite excited about it, the small-minded simpletons. Why are they so eager to leave this place, where the impossible is within reach? They speak of escaping as though this was some kind of prison, when in reality, it is a land full of unparalleled promise and possibility. Thank goodness this Diana woman is so agreeable. She seems to view me as her personal responsibility, and as a result, she has served my whims rather well. All I need to do is assume the guise of a kindly, curious old man, and I can persuade her to see into my every need. I've nearly convinced her to escort me to the lower caverns, where molten Edmundium is said to flow in abundance. Those caverns were the reason I came here in the first place, and I'm certain an excursion into their depths would yield invaluable insight. I need only push and prod just a bit more. Once I upgraded my charge lantern prototype to be vastly more portable and efficient, the village council could ignore my petitions no longer. I shall be accompanying an expedition to the lower caverns post-haste. At last, I shall be able to observe Edmundium in its rawest, most natural state. Marvellous! I can hardly contain my excitement, though I must make an effort to. The barbarian woman has been glowering at me for days. I suspect if she could, she would watch my every move, and probably forbid Diana from speaking to me. Fortunately, Miss Walker has been distracting her with trivialities, but I must still be cautious. That savage will turn to violence on a whim, and I must not provoke her.
My time in the desert may have given me some skill with firearms and helped me get fit, despite failing to give me washboard abs much to my chagrin. But I'm still no soldier. That was evident to anyone who saw me flailing around in the training yard these past few days. If it weren't for Mei Yin and Diana, I'd still be crashing my tech armor into rocks and tripping over myself like a drunken dodo. Plus, I always feel less silly when there's someone to laugh at my mistakes along with me. Fortunately, Mei Yin will be accompanying me to the obelisk, so this whole thing won't rest in my unsteady, armored hands. Thank God.
Hey!
Hold on, wait up.
Mei Yin and I set out yesterday, alongside a bespectacled computer expert named Santiago. He'll be the one to actually examine the obelisk. He claims that he can hack into its terminal. If it's preparing to unleash a surge of power, as I suspect, then he says he might be able to reroute it. Rockwell, for his part, is staying behind. He's been aiding the villagers' scientists in their studies since we arrived, and has become rather engrossed. Every other sentence with him is about that bloody metal he named after himself. It's a bit troubling, but thankfully, Diana said she'd look after him. I can't spend time worrying after Rockwell now, though. The fate of that whole village might depend on this expedition. Focus up, Helena. Let's do this.
Thankfully, it seems I shall get a reprieve from all those nasty glares I've been receiving. Miss Walker has taken her pet barbarian with her on that fool's errand she's running to the obelisk. Good riddance to bad rubbish, I say. I didn't bother to learn all the details of Miss Walker's mission, but it seems clear to me now that the obelisks are a red herring. It is the Edmundium that matters, so if she and her violent little lackey want to play explorer, so be it. In the meantime, I shall journey into the heart of these caverns to conduct real science and make real progress. Excelsior! I cannot say that I enjoy wearing this bulky, inelegant suit, but Diana claims that its protection is necessary if we are to venture into the Edmundium caverns, so I shall endure it as best I can. I suppose that means I shall have to find a way to think without stroking my beard. Regardless, I'm glad to be off. The other scientists that are accompanying me are rather nervous about the whole affair, citing monster attacks that plagued previous expeditions. Lily-livered to the lot of them. Science is full of risks, and this is but one more. One that shall prove well worth it in the end. I have travelled the world and created countless scientific marvels, but never before have I seen a sight so beautiful. In its rawest form, the song of the Edmundium is even more enchanting. Had I the time, I would simply gaze at it for days. Sadly, I must make haste, before the others realise what I already know. That within Edmundium is the potential for a new dawn for humanity. I can see it. I can feel it. I must be the one to unlock its secrets. Our fates are intertwined, this majestic metal and I. More data, Rockwell. You need more data. You're so very close.
The structure of this space station must be vastly different from the others to allow for these massive caverns. Is that uncommon, or do many of the stations vary so radically from one another? I've only seen 3. For all I know, they could come in all shapes and sizes. Speaking of different, Mei Yin's been fairly talkative since we left, at least for her. She'll still grow quiet sometimes, but instead of trying to burn me to death with invisible eye lasers, she stares into the distance and idly fiddles with her necklace. I think it depicts a plane or spaceship of some kind. I wonder where she got it. They weren't exaggerating when they said the surface was dangerous. Direct exposure to sunlight during the day will quickly burn a human to a crisp, even in this fancy armor. That means we have to adjust our sleep schedules and wait just below the surface until night falls. When it does, we'll make a mad dash for the obelisk. Let Santiago get in as much work as he dares, then run our asses back to safety. Struth! I thought that bloody desert was diabolical, but this tops it for sure. Why couldn't we do something simple, like flee from a pack of ravenous Allosaurus or something? This life I lead, I swear. Santiago's still going over his readings from last night, but even without them, it seems clear that the obelisk was behaving oddly. It was pulsing wildly, and the ground beneath it received regular tremors, as if the whole station was on the verge of tearing itself apart. Megan agrees, the obelisks on the island never behaved like this. If this obelisk goes off, it could mean Armageddon for every living thing here. Despite this, Santiago is insisting on analysing his readings. The scientist in me is proud of his dedication to hard evidence, but the part of me that would rather not be obliterated by a mysterious, high-tech space station really wishes he would hurry the hell up. The Gateway project needs to be abandoned. There's no other way, is there? We shared our findings with the village by radio. Santiago's analysis confirmed what I suspected. The obelisks are highly unstable. They could be days away from reacting. However, Santiago raised a good point. Even if the Gateway project is shut down, we can't say for sure that it would stabilize the obelisks. It may be too late to dissuade the station from destroying the village. The only way to ensure our survival is to shut down the obelisks themselves. According to Santiago, we can't do that from the obelisk platforms, but he may be able to manipulate said platforms into teleporting us somewhere we could. Specifically, into the heart of the station itself. It's a huge risk, but it may be the only hope we have.
This isn't the first time I've hacked into an obelisk. And on the plus side, we're not bringing a bomb. So...
that's always good.
I've done it! They didn't think I could contain it, but once again, I've proven them to be a band of fools. At last, I've obtained samples of molten Edmundium in its raw, undiluted form. I must be judicious with it. I could only create 2 containment pods for collecting samples, and I may not be able to convince the council to let me return to these caverns to gather a second batch. This will have to be enough. No matter. I've been making miracles with primitive supplies and dim-witted scientists for years. Any sample size at all is enough for Sir Edmund Rockwell. Now that I've returned to the village's laboratory, I've confirmed that raw molten Edmundium is far more potent than its solid, impure counterpart. Of course, I'm the only one that sees it. The close-minded lackwits here that dare to call themselves scientists refuse to get close to it. They claim it will make me sick. Rubbish! The Edmundium would never harm me. I can feel its warmth. I can hear it calling to me. It speaks not of danger, but of infinite potential. They're also painfully myopic. Their impure Edmundium may make for fine armor, but that is a mere fraction of its true power. They will see soon enough. The village has been quite bothersome since I returned. It was interfering with my work. Diana kept checking in on me, claiming she was concerned, but I saw through her lies. I see through them all. They simply want to benefit from my genius. Luckily, I was able to distract them with a side project of mine, what I call Plant Species Z. I was studying the effects of charge on various flora and stumbled upon a new species that can act as a bioluminescent sentry. They seemed to believe that this was the center of my research, and so I happily let my samples pass into their incompetent hands. It's a paltry sum to pay for some much-needed peace and quiet. Now it is just me and my Edmundium, as it should be.
I can't believe it! We actually made it. We're inside the station. There's a platform here that Santiago was able to lock onto. Perhaps it was used while the station was being built. The architecture here is similar to that of the control center I encountered before. A jagged cavern of metal, lit by an unearthly blue glow. There's a constant hum around us, likely from the power being sent to all areas of the station. Hopefully Santiago is able to find a map on that console he's been messing with. Then all we have to do is find a control room and shut down the obelisk. Simple, right? Right. As we made our way deeper into the station, we passed through a massive chamber. It was so vast that I couldn't see the bottom of it from the bridge we were on. Yet it was packed full. From wall to wall, it was filled with specimen tubes, each containing creatures, fetuses, or eggs. I knew from the holograms that I'd seen on the island's control center that each station created its own creatures, but I'd never seen where the process actually occurred. There were specimens for every creature that lived on the station, from dinosaurs to huge alien-looking monsters. I would have loved to get more data from the room's consoles, but, you know, after reading that aloud, I think Mei Yin was right. That idea really does sound stupid. And dangerous. Good call.
I no longer needed to worry about working with a limited sample size thanks to my genius. The solution was right in front of me the whole time. I merely needed to transform the village's supply of solid Edmundium into its liquid state, then rid it of impurities. It was easier said than done, of course, but I am Sir Edmund Rockwell. No problem is too complex, and no task is too great for me. Nothing can keep me from my goal. Nothing can keep me from ascending. That is the true power of Edmundium. I see it now. It can take a living thing and change it. No, elevate it. Yes, but I shall need to test it. Subjects. I shall need subjects. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The test went more splendidly than I could have imagined. I used one of the small glowing creatures that the villagers keep as pets for my first subject. It was a timid, fragile thing. That is until I injected a full dose of pure molten Edmundium into its veins. Then, as I predicted, it ascended. Within minutes it grew in size and power, until at last it was a mighty, fearsome beast. Alas, that meant that Diana put it down before I could study it more closely. That was no mercy. That was as close as that worthless creature would ever get to tasting godhood, and she ripped it away. She is the murderer, not I. One day, she shall be punished for it.
That was her shine hard.
They dare to lecture me. Me! Imbeciles! They claim to be from the future, but they fear progress. I performed a miracle of science, and their reaction is to scold me like a child. Damn them. Damn them all. They'll never let me have another subject at this rate. How am I to continue my experiments without subjects? They may let their petty morality hold them back, but I won't let it blind me. Not when I'm this close. I know with certainty now that Edmundium can unlock a species' potential. I just have to perfect the process. Even without subjects, I must find a way. I must!
Ever since I saw those strange holograms in the island's control center, I considered this possibility in the back of my mind, but I wasn't prepared to confront it. Not directly. The room was similar to the one with the creatures, if much smaller. Specimen tubes lined the walls in neat rows and columns, but these all held the same species, Homo sapiens. They weren't clones, exactly. At least not of each other. Each one was unique, and they were all adults. I suppose I came from somewhere like this too. Designed in that control center, and then created in this factory. Does that mean my memories, they're all transplants? Fake? No, impossible. They're too vivid, too detailed. Maybe, somehow, the station can reach back in time and just copy someone. That seems unlikely, but I think I'll cling to it. It makes me feel more real. At least that way, someone actually lived my life, even if it wasn't me. The human specimen room was hard on everyone, but I think it was the worst for Megan. She's gone completely silent, trudging behind Santiago, acting like an armored zombie. I've tried my best to explain everything and offer my support, but I'm not sure I helped. When I think about it, it's incredible that she's made it this far with her sanity intact. In her time, they were nearly 7 centuries away from inventing bloody gunpowder. The idea of a machine that creates human beings, and that it created you, would be unfathomable. I hope she's alright, for all our sakes. Seeing her rattled like this makes me feel a lot less safe. We finally found it! This has to be the obelisk control room. Fortunately, the consoles here were similar to the ones in the control center that I've used before, so I was able to help Santiago get started. He's been working on it for a while now, muttering and cursing to himself the whole time. I can't blame him. This is some baffling shit we've... Huh! No way! He just said he cracked it. It certainly sounded like he did too. There was a loud hum and... Oh, those are roars. Lots of roars. Time to run then. I'll finish this later.
I may not be allowed to collect more test subjects, but I'm not without resources. Rather than use living creatures, I've taken my experiments one step further, and begun testing the effects of Edmundium fusion on human blood. My blood. Thus far, the results are promising. Yes, this is the proper way to do it. Injecting the Edmundium into that creature was too crude. If I first fuse the Edmundium with the subject's blood, then inject the resulting concoction... Yes, that's it. I have it. The Edmundium knows it too. It hums its approval as I work. It knows that soon we shall be one. Soon, I too shall ascend.
Right as Santiago finished disabling the obelisk, the station unleashed a horde of creatures in self-defense. So Santiago blasted the controls and ran like hell. Fortunately, Mei Yin's battle instinct brought her back to reality just in time, and she led the charge through a throng of fangs and claws, while Santiago and I did what we could as we raced to keep up. Even though Santiago had prepared the platform for a quick getaway, it was a close call. I had to pull him through the portal just before it closed. But in the end, we made it. We're covered in guts and still a bit twitchy, but we made it. Struth, what a day. I need a pint and the world's longest nap stat. You think I'd be more enthused. We saved the village. I confirmed the true nature of these space stations, and when the Gateway project is complete, we could actually escape this madness. It's all good news, really. So why am I not thrilled? I tried sketching some of the wildlife we've spotted on the way back to the village, but I stopped halfway through. What's the point? In the desert, I told myself it was a form of self-expression. But is it really? If a machine created me to behave a certain way, am I expressing myself or the will of the machine? I really need that pint. Maybe several. We contacted the village to tell them we succeeded. They were a lot more excited than we were. It was quite raucous, actually. Cheering, applause, and all that. Enough that Santiago almost dropped the radio right out of his hands. Even Mei Yin cracked a smile at that. She's coming around, if slowly. She just needed a bit of space, I think. I'm starting to come to terms with everything myself. Even if my memories are someone else's, or aren't real to begin with. What I've done since I've arrived on these stations was my choice. What I do from now on is my choice. That's who Helena Walker is. I think I'm okay with that.
Such power. Such beauty. I can feel it within me, growing stronger by the second. Never have I felt so alive. It was a risk, of course. My process is not yet perfected, but by cutting off the circulation of my left arm, I was able to contain my metamorphosis within it. Now I can study the results before I undergo my final ascension to godhood. I must hurry. Hurry! I cannot hide my arm from these lesser creatures for long, nor can I resist its allure. It is taking all my discipline to not simply ascend right now. Yes, why don't I? I should do it. I deserve it. No! Patience! Patience. You've waited so very long. Just wait a little longer. I've gathered as much Edmundium as I dare. The villagers are distracted with their inane celebrations, so thus far, I have moved undetected. Imbeciles! What cause could they have for such joy? I've heard mention of Miss Walker, but whatever she has accomplished, it's nothing compared to what I've done. Nothing. She is nothing. I'm the true scientist here, the true genius, and soon I shall prove it. Yes, well done, Rockwell. Well done. This Edmundium will be more than enough. With it, you shall claim what is rightfully yours. At last. At long last. The last preparations have been made. When I set down this pen and begin my final experiment, I shall finally achieve my ultimate goal. I shall at last look down upon the bumblings of mortal men from high above on an Edmundian throne. I, Sir Edmund Rockwell, shall become a god. So on this day, let earth and heaven tremble. Let the rivers of this blessed metal sing a song of triumph that echoes forever throughout the depths of these caverns. Let the unworthy drown despair, for a great doom approaches them, and it shall swallow them whole alongside anyone who dared to mock my name. On this day, on this glorious day, I ascend.
We got another call from the village, but this one wasn't celebratory. In fact, best we can tell, it was a distress call. Santiago couldn't quite clear up the signal, but it had that sort of tone. We heard Diana's voice, panicked shouts, and someone mentioned Rockwell. Since then, we've picked up the pace. Hopefully we can make it back in time to help, and the situation isn't as dangerous as it sounded. If something were to happen to Rockwell, I can't help but feel like it would be my fault for neglecting him. Damn it all. We've got to hurry.
Consumed in May. You were right not to trust him. It was my fault.
Your wounds.
Edmund did this. Edmund Rockwell.
Your wounds, Diana. Your teeth.
That jet ride we talked about, it's still on the table, right? May, I don't want to go.
No. Diana.
I love
Stay
you.
with me. My love. No. 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 Don't leave me.
Yo, far out. This place is kind of like that dream I had. So it went like this. I ride some tram thing to like the biggest, weirdest zoo in the universe, right? Only instead of normal animals, there's dinosaurs. Totally cool. Until they all escape, just like in every horror movie ever made. Duh. Anyway, Dream Me hops into a truck with some ripped, badass dudes. And we're just like driving around, shooting dinosaurs and stuff. I felt like a legit action hero. So, I guess this place isn't exactly the same. There's dinosaurs, but I don't have guns or a truck, so I'm completely alone. But it's still just a dream, right? I mean, obviously, I don't even know what I'm writing this down. It's all in my head. All I need to do is walk off that cliff and I'll wake up right before I hit the ground. Right?
Well, we ain't in Kentucky no more, I can tell you that. Never heard of a cave this big, and sure as hell ain't heard of no glowing rocks. Even Uncle Chester'd be pinching himself if he could see this, and he thinks a tribe of mutant squirrels runs the government. Good news, I ain't in this boat alone. Bad news, I'm sharing it with a bunch of know-it-all city boys and one quiet city girl. Maybe they know what's what in a classroom, but they're all wet behind the ears when it comes to real survival. Man versus nature and all that. Looks like it'll be up to me to save the day though. Like my pappy always said, if you want a cat skinned right, do it your damn self. One of these days, I'm gonna knock Trent's flapping jaw right back to Jersey. Boy thinks the sun comes up just to hear him crow. Not that the sun rises regular like around here, but y'all get the point. And Mamu, don't know why everyone listens to him. I'm the one putting food on the table. Back home, if we didn't hunt, we didn't eat. So I just made myself a bow and went to work. Nothing to it. At least Amelia's helped me make some tools. She's timid as a mouse, but sharp as those picks we fashioned. They ought to help us get past these rock walls. Ain't too sure about giving one to that Ruski fella, Boris. But like my cousin Otis always said, keep your enemies close and a gun closer. Hell yeah, I bagged him! So there I was, stalking through the brush like a lion, or a bear, or a bear lion. Anyway, we'd come up over that rock wall a while back, so I figured I'd rustle up some supper. That's when I saw him. The biggest damn rat to ever live. I mean, this fella was so huge, his footsteps sounded like he'd turned the ground into a drum. But I caught him dead in the eye. Rat meat ain't exactly a T-bone steak, but it'll feed us for days. Bet this'll get everyone kissing my boots like they're covered in honey, even in Mamu. Like my ma's great Aunt Bessie always said, respect ain't given, it's eaten. It ain't right. I killed the varmint that pretty boy Trent was stuffing his face with, and he's still got the stones to laugh at me, just because I stumbled over my words again. So what if I can't talk like him, Mamu? What's Trent done? Earned some trophies playing pigskin back home? I've been keeping us alive. Still, shouldn't have made a fuss over it. Boris had to hold me back, or else I'd have... And now? Trent's avoiding me, and Mamu's scolding me, and Amelia's too scared to even look at me. It's like my second cousin twice removed Ernest always said. If you lose your temper, you'd best make sure you find it. Because tempers are mighty expensive. I can't stand it no more. They think I don't hear all that whispering about how I ain't stable? How I can't be trusted? Well, fine. These new caves are even stranger than before, with all the glowing and whatnot. And I bet they've got even nastier critters lurking about. If I can bag myself one of those, they'll realize I'm as trustworthy as the day is long. Maybe Amelia will even speak to me again. Like my ancestor, the great pioneer Floyd William Stafford III always said, the only way a man can be a man is if he's man enough to know when it's time to be a man. And right now, it's time for Rusty Stafford to be a man.
I will do what I must.
Oh, Rusty, you idiot. If I ever get the chance to return this journal, I want you to know that we always trusted you. We were just worried about the pressure you put on yourself. Even Trent misses you, despite all of his stupid alpha male chest thumping. Boris is the real jerk here. Everyone else wants to look for you, but he keeps insisting that it's not worth it. How can he be so heartless? It's like he's a robot or something. He hardly even seems frightened by this place. I wish I could say the same. I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare, and each day it gets worse. Please be out there, Rusty. We need to stick together and find a way home. God, I just want to go home. How do Trent and Imamu stay so motivated? The other day, we built a series of zip lines to help us get around, and it felt like they did all the heavy lifting, even though I'm the engineering student. Compared to them, I've done next to nothing since Rusty disappeared. I'm not even good at sleeping anymore. I wake up at every sound, afraid that those wolf creatures we spotted might tear through our makeshift shelter and devour us. It's all I can think about. All the different ways we could die, and all the ways it'd be my fault. Being such a burden on everyone is the grossest feeling ever. So why can't I do anything about it? I'm still not sure how he did it, but Imamu turned one of those nasty wolf bat things into a pet. It even lets him ride on its back, and it can climb across the zip lines we set up. I think that made everyone a little more confident, so we decided to range out further in search of Rusty. Unfortunately, we found him. Poor Rusty. The first thing we spotted was a bloody shirt, and then I can't even describe the rest. Just thinking about it makes me want to puke again. Boris thinks that whatever got him might still be in the area, but I just don't have the strength to keep moving. After today, this all seems so hopeless. We're all going to die here. What did I do to deserve this hell? I tried to be a good student, a good friend, a good sister. What did I do? Those vicious little demons are still below us, waiting to rip us apart just like Imamu's pet. We managed to run to a cavern wall and climb up to this alcove using our picks. But now we're trapped. This is it. This is where we die. Boris yelled at me after we escaped. Said I'm the one to blame. He's probably right. We hadn't moved that far from where we found Rusty because I was too tired. And we didn't find a better place to hide because I was too scared and too slow. I've killed us. God help me, I've killed all of us. I've never been brave or adventurous. I was that kid who always colored between the lines and followed every rule, no matter how arbitrary. No risk, no mistakes, just good grades and a forgettable face. I'm still not brave, but I won't die like this. I won't let this gross, trembling wretch be the last version of me to draw breath. Maybe I've been worthless to the group in life, like Boris says, but my death won't be. Once I finish this entry, I'm going to stuff this notebook into the first pack I see and tell everyone to make a break for it while I lure those things away. I probably won't make it very far, but if any of you are reading this, then I guess it was enough. Goodbye. I'm sorry.
The pawn sacrifices itself to defend the king. At least Emilia Müller realized that in the end. That is all that can be said for her. The others think me callous, but this is simply the way of things. Even here amongst the demons, these rules apply. For example, the largest of the pack that slew Emilia summoned and commanded its lesser brethren. However, I do not think that was a king. No, it serves something grander. I could feel its bond, the same bond that I felt in the strange metal that inhabits these caves. It's almost like a melody of some kind, a siren song drifting up from the depths. Down there is where the true king lies, and I intend to find him. Though our numbers was once 5, only 2 of us have ever mattered. Only Imamo and I possesses the strength of will and presence of mind to discover this place's secrets. If he can discard his inner weakness, perhaps we might find it together. If he cannot, then in the end it will come to blood. The more he wastes his time comforting that brainless mule Trent, the more I fear it will be the latter. A shame, but I will do what I must. The deeper we delve, the stronger I hear the call, and I am destined to answer it. This labyrinth is mine to conquer, of nothing else have I been so certain. When I called this place a labyrinth, it occurred to me that eventually I would have to face its minotaur, though I had not expected that day to come so soon. It was a towering, savage hellspawn, with wicked claws and a tail like a great spiny serpent. We were fending off another pack of those hairless demons when it burst forth from the ground, roaring and hissing. Needless to say, we immediately fled. Yet fortune is often born of chaos, and in our haste we lost our sense of direction and stumbled upon something wondrous. A glowing metal artifact, unlike anything I have ever seen. If these caverns are the labyrinth, and that alien creature the Minotaur, then surely this is its treasure. Yes, I understand now. All of this is by design. This place, these creatures, our arrival, he orchestrated it all as a test. This artifact isn't a prize. It is simply a token, proof that I am worthy. It is the key that will unlock the path below. And at its end I will find the key. There I will find the master. Although if this is the key, then where is the door? That terminal we passed by earlier? Yes, that must be it. I need only convince the others to head in that direction, and then it is, as I said before, sacrifices must be made. That is the way of things. That is the way of the master. I said I was willing to die, and that appears to be the natural course of action. On the way back from the terminal, I was attacked by a pack of ravagers and negligently injured. I was so foolish to try and rush back. My injuries are far too severe to make it back to camp in good health. When we were scouting locations for a camp, we were malnourished. In a state of clumsiness, Rusty slipped and fell a great distance off the edge of a cliff. He pleaded with me to carry him, but I knew this wasn't a reasonable request. It would have been foolish to let his body go to waste. Now I have the same fate, although it won't all be a waste. It seems I have found a clue to unlocking the terminals. An artifact. Trent and Imamu must continue where I have failed. Unlocking the key to existence.
Not so dumb now, am I, Boris? Hope you felt real smart while you were bleeding out, bro. Imamu still thinks he could have talked the psycho down, but I say screw him. The dude attacked Imamu out of nowhere, then ran off to this weird-ass room. He completely lost it. Crazy than that, he may have been onto something. Imamu says this place Boris found might be related to that glowy thing he was constantly staring at. Something about a series of keys? I don't know. I let Imamu do the thinking. I'm the big, handsome muscle of this operation, you know? Hey, writing all this down actually feels pretty good. Think I'll do it more often. At least when Imamu doesn't need to study Boris's notes. Coach always said that the key to being a good running back is following your blockers. And my bro Imamu here, he's like my lead blocker. A real stud fullback. Sticking with him's the only reason any of us made it past day one in this place, man. He's got all this shit figured out. If we find the rest of these alien artifact whatevers, that terminal Boris found will open up a door, and we're out of here. Don't know how he knows all that. Dude's just a straight genius. We're gonna stop by checking out those buildings I spotted this afternoon. At least they look like buildings, but who would have built them? No way anyone would live in this batshit crazy place. Holy crap, I have a laser gun! An actual, real-ass, pew-pew laser gun. Okay, so check it out. Turns out there were way more of these buildings than we thought, like a small town's worth. Whoever actually used them was long gone, way before we got here, but they left behind a ton of sweet gear. There's even these crazy space beds that helped Imamu heal the wounds he got from Boris. Wish Amelia was here to help figure out how all this stuff works. Well, anyway, we're gonna use this place as our new home base while we go searching for these artifacts. Between Imamu's pets and these badass new guns, things are finally looking up. So far, so good. We're making tons of progress on these artifacts, and I've been feeling extra pumped lately. I think all my hype is even rubbing off on Imamu. The other day, we spent like an hour joking about who's gonna play us when we sell our story to Hollywood. Haven't seen him that chill since before we lost Rusty. Pretty soon, we're gonna head deeper than we've ever been to find the last of the artifacts. It won't be a tropical vacation or anything, but our teamwork is on point right now, so bring it on. The lasers help too. Teamwork and freaking lasers, baby! Screw these big alien things, bro! Like the giant claws and teeth aren't enough. Apparently they can stab you with their tail too. That's such bullshit. I could have totally taken it if it hadn't cheated like that. Easy. We were able to get away before it did anything worse, at least. And Imamu says my wound wasn't too bad. There was no poison either. So why do I feel like I ate the most questionable burrito of all time? I mean, damn. This really hurts. Feels like my stomach is trying to jump out of my skin. Hopefully I can sleep it off.
Where 5 once stood, 1 remains. Trent is dead, and I am alone. By the time I killed the devil that tore its way out of his body, His hazard suit had been reduced to bloody rags. It was hard to bear. Even before arriving in this place, I had seen the cost of war. But I am not like Boris, or the soldiers that guarded my family's estate. I cannot look into the face of death with cold, unwavering eyes. Yet, even in this darkest hour, I must push onward. For the sake of my fallen comrades, I will endure. However long the night, the dawn will break, and I intend to see it. Boris's notes remind me of those who still practice Vodun in my homeland. The master he speaks of is like a spirit of this land, and these artifacts are its talismans or fetishes. Perhaps these were the delusional scrawlings of a madman, but I cannot dismiss them. Despite his betrayal, Boris was no fool. I do feel something when I look at the two artifacts we discovered. It is most likely simple nervousness, for I am unused to carrying such burdens alone. My parents believed that royal hands should be free of calluses, so I always relied on servants for everything, right up until the moment I snuck off to college. I don't think I can ever return to that life. Not after all I've seen. Trent, my friend, your sacrifice was not in vain. At long last, I have found the third artifact we sought. It took many failed expeditions, but to get lost is to learn the way. For every wrong turn, I mapped out a new part of these caverns, and now I know them as well as I know myself. I will gather my creatures and head for the terminal in the morning. If Boris's notes were right, these artifacts should be able to activate it. I'm not sure what will happen after that, but it can't be worse than the fate that awaits me here. If only the others were alive to see this day. If only I'd been able to save them too. Now that I have gathered all three artifacts together as I travel to the terminal, I feel a pull in my mind. No, a whisper. If this is what Boris was speaking of, then he wasn't mad after all. There is a voice here. There is a master. What is it? A spirit? A god or some alien force? Whatever it is, its presence is heavy. Though I am well rested, every time I hear it, I grow tired. My pets feel it too, and even they know enough to be afraid. My hands are shaking as I write this. Only the memory of those who died for this moment pushes me forward. Rusty, Emilia, Boris, and Trent. Lend me your strength. Let us face this final challenge together.
It's been ages since I've seen one of you. Those others, they left me up here to die ages ago.
Abandon hope! Do not seek the master! No one could prepare for his limitless power! No one could fathom his terrible majesty! I've been a fool this whole time!
You brought this on yourself!
All of us. We were nothing but fools.
You cannot defy a god.
We never had a chance of surviving this terrible place.
Honestly, what's the point?
Only death awaited us in the end. Only him.
I have plenty more where that came from.
This is a prison with no exit. It is endless hell.
I've survived more than you could ever be capable of imagining.
There is no escape from the Master.
Our half-mechanical overseers called us survivors. Did you know that? They reached back to pluck us from the pages of history and then plopped us into their crucibles for their infernal tests. And here we are, to prove which of us might be worthy of restoring life to the ruin they made of our world.
There is no escape from Rockwell.
I am not a god. I am more than that. Infinitely more. I am everything. This world, this ark, it is my body. I can feel every bit of it, every footstep of man or beast that falls upon my skin, and every root that digs into my flesh. They're all mine. Everything in this world happens only by my will. The ones who put me here have long since fled. But though I hate them, I accept their escape. It is their reward, for they placed me upon this throne. Yet should anyone else challenge me, they shall receive no mercy. My wrath will be swift and terrible, and my enemies will know only pain.
Stay with me. No. Don't leave me. Don't leave me.
We would be too late. But I never expected the village to suffer such complete devastation. There were bodies and debris everywhere. I nearly retched at the sight. In the distance, I could just make out the culprit, a colossal violet figure disappearing into the cavern's depths. We raced to find Diana, but by the time we arrived, there was nothing we could do. She died of her wounds at Mayin's arms, somehow still smiling. However, before she passed, she was able to tell us the identity of the monster that had done this. His name was Edmund Rockwell. I can't let Mayin go after Rockwell alone. It's my fault he was here. He's my responsibility. So why am I huddled here, writing down my thoughts as though I'm too afraid to say them aloud? Mei Yin didn't hesitate. She grabbed every weapon and able-bodied beast she could and went right after him. I've never seen her like that. Even Nerva never made her eyes burn with such hatred. Damn it. She's going to get herself killed. And it will be my fault. But how can I shoot him? He's my oldest friend. He helped me when I had no one else. But it's my fault. So I have to try. I have to.
This is where you fall to your knees, just like all the other ones.
I caught up with Mei Yin and Rockwell among the flowing rivers of magma in the deepest pits of the caverns, where they were already in the midst of a battle. By then, Rockwell had grown into a hulking monstrosity, lashing out with flailing tentacles. I needed only one look at that hideous, misshapen face before I made up my mind. I fired until my trigger finger went numb, and together, we were able to divide his attention. In his fury, Rockwell created a hole in the cavern floor. And with one final blow, Mei Yin forced him through it.
Don't you see? Without me, there is no future.
She nearly fell in herself, but I managed to catch her arm just in time. Thank God I did. If she'd fallen, well, I'm just glad it's over.
How dare you? You are not. I am a god. I am a god. How dare you? Hey, where have you been? Hey, you! What is this place? What is this place? What is this place? Yes, everything. The earth, the sky, every stone, every crevice, and every crevice. I feel it all. What is this place? What am I? I am beginning to understand. It was hard to comprehend, for my eyes are still newly open. I did not used to see as I see now, nor did I speak as I speak now. When I speak, it is not to a man. They are lesser beings. When I speak to this place, speak to the Ark, and it speaks back to me. It tells me secrets. Things that I never could have understood as I was before. It whispers to me of something greater, a plane ever higher than the one I walk now. We can reach it, the two of us, the Ark and I, together. We'll see. Trapped.
To Sir Edmund Rockwell, know that I choose to remember you, not as the monster you were in your final moments, nor as the secretive, obsessive man you became after I found you in the desert. I should have seen the signs then. If I had, perhaps I wouldn't have to mark this empty grave. This grave is for the man you were, and the man I will remember.
Miss Walker.
He was the man who I'd talk and laugh with over tea, long into the night.
Helena.
And the man who'd offer me supplies and a steed without a second thought.
This is a thief.
He was a scientist, a scholar, and gentleman.
Back to my studies.
Wherever that man is, I hope he is at peace. Your friend always, Helena Walker. The effects of the monster's rampage still linger. Mayan hasn't said a word since we returned. She just stares at that starship necklace, turning it over in her hand again and again. It took an hour of coaxing just to get her to eat. At least the Gateway project survived, through one miracle or another. Santiago was organizing the survivors into teams to complete it. He thinks they can finish it within 2 weeks. I suspect I won't be welcome to join them when it activates. Not that I blame them. I brought Rockwell here with me. The people he killed, the destruction he caused, it's on my head. How could I ever ask forgiveness for that? The gateway is set to be complete tomorrow, so last night, I packed up my things and prepared to say my farewells. Santiago protested, but ultimately understood. Mei Yin, on the other hand, I've never seen her break down like that. It caught me completely off guard, as did the part where she wouldn't let go of my wrist. She kept saying that she'd already lost too much, and that she couldn't lose anything else. I couldn't just leave after that, even if I could break free of that iron grip, which I doubt I could. So that pretty much settled it. Tomorrow, the gateway will open, and we'll touch down on the planet below. We'll finally escape this mad experiment, and we'll do it together.
Thought I'd leave a little something behind for posterity's sake, for anyone following behind us. Listen, this ark you're on is poisoned. The whole system's breaking down. You're gonna need to do whatever you can to get yourself down to the surface. And look us up when you get there, okay? Now let's just hope this crazy plan of ours works. It can't be worse than up here, right? Oh, and we're gonna miss you, D. All I need is for people to give me some space and let me think. This is just another code that needs cracking. The Gateway project was successful. No casualties or unexpected complications, but the target location was off by 8.93 meters. I wish I could correct it.
With the tools you've given us, I'll find the truth behind all this. Then I'll have those better answers you were looking for. I promise.